And what age should someone be allowed to start transitioning medically? What age should they be allowed to get surgery?
I think that should be between them and their doctor for the most part.
What?
Everyone
Them
has
and
a
their
different
doctor.
life situation, everyone matures at a different rate.
But what age? Would an 8-year-old be allowed to do that with should an 8-year-old or 10 or even 11 or 12-year-old be allowed to do that with a doctor?
Hormonally speaking, 8-year-old boys and girls are essentially the same. So at that age, I think they can put in hormone blockers to reduce the rate of puberty at that age. I don't know too much about it.
You're trusting an 8-year-old to make that type of life-altering decision? You don't even let 8-year-olds cross the street by themselves, but you let an 8-year-old, I guess, transition. Bro, that is insane. They are 8 years old and say, you know what? You should be allowed to do these things. 8-year-olds aren't allowed to do anything in society. Their brains aren't fully developed. So no, 8-year-olds shouldn't be allowed to make these type of decisions.
Trans woman being in a female prison.
Yeah, that's fine.
They are women.
They have that in Orange is the New Black, don't they?
Yeah, they are women. They would the amount of abuse and violence that they would face in a men's only prison. That is, it's basically just suggesting like you are not actually a woman, you are a man. They are women. Yeah. They are more women than I am.
They are women.
You know?
Hi, we're at Sussex University. What are your pronouns?
She, her.
What age should someone be allowed to socially transition?
Oh, this. I'm sorry.
Whoa. Why'd they get so mad? Was that like an aggressive question?
Was it something I said? What are your pronouns?
She, they?
I don't actually have a clue. What does she, they mean?
I don't know, to be honest.
What?
I'm just not entirely comfortable with the she, her pronouns, but also I don't feel like asking people to call me they, them, so it's just easier.
What age should someone be allowed to socially transition?
18? Well, socially. Any age they want.
So, for example,
What?
8-year-old boy starts running around in girls' clothes, identifying as female, maybe even asked to be called Jane, for example. Is that okay?
I think so, yeah.
And what age should someone be allowed to start transitioning medically? What age should they be allowed to get surgery?
I think that should be between them and their doctor for the most part. Because
What?
everyone
Them
has
and
a
their
different
doctor.
life situation, everyone matures at a different rate.
But what age? Would an 8-year-old be allowed to do that with should an 8-year-old or 10 or even 11 or 12-year-old be allowed to do that with a doctor?
Hormonally speaking, 8-year-old boys and girls are essentially the same. So at that age, I think they can put in hormone blockers to reduce the rate of puberty at that age. I don't know too much about it.
No, that's fine. So I'm learning as I go. You mentioned puberty blockers, so stopping the developmental path to allow them to decide. So an 8-year-old could go on puberty blockers, for example, to then go on to decide later.
Yeah,
Would you be okay with that?
I would, yeah.
So, you're trusting an 8-year-old to make that type of life-altering decision? You don't even let 8-year-olds cross the street by themselves, but you let an 8-year-old, I guess, transition. Bro, that is insane. They're 8. They are 8 years old. Like, I don't understand why. It is one thing to support, to support this, like, support the LGBTQ plus community. It's one thing to support them, but it's a whole different thing when you look at an 8-year-old child and say, you know what? You should be allowed to do these things. 8-year-olds aren't allowed to do anything in society. Their brains aren't fully developed. So no, 8-year-olds shouldn't be allowed to make these type of decisions. And when you say to someone interviewing you, or you say to yourself that, yeah, an 8-year-old can make this decision, that is insane and you need to be checked out. Hey y'all, make sure y'all subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to subscribe.
What about trans women, so biological men, is that correct? Trans women being in female safe spaces.
Yeah, I'm perfectly comfortable with that.
It seems to be a large part of the feminist movement that fought very hard for years for whatever they thought was important, and of course most decent people would support that. So how do you feel about, for example, taking the extreme, i.e. socially in bathrooms, to trans women in prisons, in female prisons for example? Should they be allowed in female prisons?
I think so, yeah.
Why?
Because they're women.
What about the feminist argument that say that that's not true?
Well,
and
that's not intersectional feminism.
What? What does
Intersectional
that even
feminism
mean?
is accepting everyone, male, female, whoever, we are all equal.
What?
Okay, fantastic. And you said your pronouns are she, they.
Yes.
Can you define what a woman is? I'm learning as I go with the pronouns, sorry.
A person that identifies as a woman, I suppose.
When you
What?
say identifies, you mean feels? I.e., so for example, you can clearly see I'm a male.
Yeah.
Hope so anyway. If I wake up tomorrow morning and want to identify as a woman, can I do that?
Yes.
No! Bro, here's the thing, man. What she's saying is that if you identify as this right here, then you can be you are socially allowed to do everything that this sex does. But the reason that that's a problem is because this man right here cannot wake up tomorrow and say, yeah, I identify as a woman, and he's going around going into women's restrooms or women only gyms or women only clubs or a woman jail. Like, bro, no, it doesn't work like that. And that is the reason I'm saying this, because that's dangerous. That is dangerous for society. No. Because if this man woke up tomorrow and said, you know what, I'm going to be a woman today, or I'm going to carry on my life as a woman, and he didn't start, I guess, transitioning. I don't know the exact terms. I don't really look into this. But if he just started going around into women's only restrooms and stuff, it would be a real problem to the women in there. And if it's not, then maybe I'm delusional. But I think it would be a real problem to the women in there because he's bigger and stronger. That's scary. No, it doesn't work like that. And while you saying it does, it's very frightening. And I don't even think you believe this yourself.
That would make me a woman.
Yeah.
What are your pronouns?
She, her.
She, her. She, they.
What does she, they mean?
It means that I can go in between the gender spectrum. I usually use she, her pronouns, but I don't really care for certain stereotypes within gender, so I can fluctuate between more masculine and feminine aspects of my personality.
Okay, understood. And we're learning a lot more about this. Do I present as a male? Would that be fair to say?
Yeah.
Right? And that's not judgmental. I would be perceived as a male.
Yeah.
What defines a woman? Based on what you've just said, we're curious to know what defines a woman.
I think that, woman is a gender, the female is the sex. I think a woman is an individual that presents themselves as a very strong and proud person, someone that is very independent.
Hold up. And me personally, I don't really care about the pronouns. Call yourself whatever. I'm never going to be like, oh, you should. I don't care that much, if I'm being honest. We all have our own issues, and this is not an issue that crosses my mind on a day-to-day. I have other things to worry about. But what I do think about is what she's talking about, how she uses the she, they pronouns because she doesn't fit into the standard mode of what a woman is. Sometimes she likes to, live in the cross section or the gray area between sexes due to the norms or standards placed upon them. But my thing is this. Women don't have to fit into a specific mold to be a woman. And what I mean by that is just because a woman has, for example, low hair, or because she has, armpit hair, or she works out in the gym and she's real strong, that doesn't mean she's any less of a woman. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because just because you don't fit into the standard traditional role as a woman doesn't mean that you're not entitled to use their pronouns if you so choose so. If you so choose. And by you saying that's the reason that you don't use the pronouns because you don't really like to fit into the standard roles that are assigned to women, that's just kind of, for one, that's kind of sexist. Because as a woman, you don't have to fit into every role. There's women watching this who probably are tougher than some of the men watching this. I don't know. Who probably lift weights more than me. Who knows, man? But you can be a woman and still do masculine things.
Second, hiya. Would you like to join the interview? What, me or it? Do you have any thoughts on men being in public bathrooms or sports? Should that be allowed?
What do you mean about men shouldn't be allowed in female bathrooms?
Yeah, the feminist movement that says they fought for what they fought for.
People with they them pronouns being in a girl's toilet or something like.
Anyone. So a trans woman is a biological male. Is that correct?
They're cis male, but they are a woman. They are a woman, a trans person.
This debate is you never know where to draw the line. You never know how far it is. If someone's transitioning from male to female, but they make no effort to transition. They've got a beard, they don't shave their beard, they still wear boys' clothes or something. If they made no effort to transition, but they just say they're a female, then it's what do you think about that? It's I think people are sometimes a little bit too open, and then it's just.
I don't think that it's necessarily anyone's
Like, it's
business
such
for
a
how
small
someone.
percentage.
I think it is complicated. That's what I'm saying because
it's so hard to know where to draw the line and like where's like.
There's more cisgender straight males that cause conflict in the world than transgender people. Like, I'm sorry, they are the most respectful people I've ever met in my entire life, and I have such the utmost respect and care for all my friends who are.
And one thing I don't like about this debate is that this young woman is just living in the gray area. She's not really answering any questions directly. She's not really being direct at all. She's living in the gray area, and that's the problem that I have. There has to be some level of, objectivity or truth in everything we do, because if there's not, how do we know what's right or wrong? And when it comes to these debates, and the reason I don't really entertain them or I don't really get into them is because where does it end? Like, what is right, what is wrong? Not even right and wrong, but what is what? Like, what is, for example, what is a man? What is a woman? That's a question that he's asked them, but they just can't answer them. The first lady answered it as whoever identifies as this or whoever identifies as that, but that's not really an answer to me. Y'all get what I'm saying? Like, it's too much gray area going on. I need some type of, foundation for what something is so I can form an opinion. Now I can't even form one because I don't even know really what your ideals are. I don't really know what you think for real. Everything you say is like gray area, subjectivity. I don't know.
Trans, and they should be able to fit in this world that they feel respected in. And
that's just good. That's just good manners, though. I'm talking about. That's just good manners, isn't it? Like, you and I were brought up with good manners, hopefully.
I grew up in a very conservative. I grew up in Southeast Asia, and it's extremely conservative. So these kinds of topics are not spoken about or cared about. It's illegal to be gay. You get more time in prison for having gay sex than you would for homicide.
Which country is that?
Myanmar.
So you've seen that side of it in Asia.
Yeah.
Okay, so in terms of that last question, so trans women, so biological men in women's spaces and prisons, for example, should that be allowed or should that not be allowed? Should they be in a male prison rather than a woman's prison?
A trans woman should never be put in a male prison. Absolutely not.
Yeah, it's really dangerous for them.
Not. They are fetishized and they are.
Were you asking about trans women or?
Trans women being in a female prison.
Yeah, that's fine.
They are women.
They have that in Orange Is the New Black, don't they?
Yeah, they are women. They would the amount of abuse and violence that they would face in a men's only prison. That is, it's basically just suggesting like you are not actually a woman, you are a man. They are women. Yeah. They are more women than I am.
Still a woman, because if you're just
What?
They're more women than you are.
Yeah, 100%.
What are you? Okay.
What does that
like,
even
if you
mean?
put them in a male prison, it's just like you're not just because they're biologically. Wait, what was it?
So
Transitioning to a woman.
yeah, trans women,
If
so
they're
biological
biologically
male.
male and you put them in a prison, you're not just offending them. It's not just like putting them in that box. You're putting every single transitioning person into that box. If that makes sense.
Really need to go train.
No worries, you've been most generous. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
What are your pronouns?
They, them.
And what age should someone be allowed to start transitioning socially?
Socially, I guess whatever age they feel is acceptable for themselves.
So, for example, we've heard that an awful lot. So we're trying to understand at what age, for parents as well, guidance. 4-year-old boy starts running around in girls' clothes or starts identifying as female. Is that okay?
I mean,
Or an 8-year-old, for example.
I guess if that's how they feel comfortable in their own skin, in their own body.
And here's what my thing. What does transitioning socially mean? Like, of course, it's not the norm for a little boy to be running around in a dress. But if I see a little boy running around in a dress, I'm not gonna think, "Wow, this little boy is a girl now." I personally would not think that. And usually, when I was coming up, if a boy was doing something that was like more feminine or something, my thought wasn't, "Oh, he's transitioning to a woman." Like, to me, that's a crazy thought because you just don't think that. So when I hear the term transitioning socially, or my thing is that's more sexist than anything, because it's just telling young boys or young girls that yes, there are traditional roles, and if you don't fit into these roles, you are not this sex. You are not this gender. If you don't fit into these specific roles, you can't qualify for this gender. That's what I hear when I hear transitioning socially. Because just because you dress like that or whatever, that doesn't mean you're a woman. But is this a conservative take? This stuff is hurting my brain, man. This stuff is hurting my brain. I'm gonna finish it out with this last woman, then I'm gonna end this.
That would be fine.
Yeah.
And what about age of consent with surgery? At what age should they be allowed to transition medically, surgically?
That would depend on the individual as well as obviously if the family is accepting and welcoming of it themselves.
So
Oh, no.
if the family was welcoming of it at, let's say, 8 years old for the boy that I just gave an example of, and the boy at 8 said that he wanted to do it, would you be okay with that?
Well, at the age of 8, there's a lot
Or
of things
10.
coming into mind with that as well. Like you can get puberty blockers, like hormone blockers, if they obviously feel extremely uncomfortable going for that themselves, as well as
Got chest binders for girls, boys can tuck as well. So are you okay, would you say it was okay socially for that to be in front of children, those options? If you're saying it's about, a lot of people say it's the child's consent, but a child can't consent to an awful lot: tattoos, alcohol, drugs, and a lot of those things potentially they should never consent to. But if an 8 or a 10-year-old or an 11-year-old says, I feel this way and I want to do it, do you think the autonomy lies with the parent, or should it be on the child to decide with surgery?
with both, because obviously the child's obviously got to be open to those options, aware of those options, as well as
What?
the parent. There should be both matters of surgical. Say if something were to happen surgically, they've got to be aware of it, as well as the parents. I feel like it's a option for both of them.
Almost consultation with the child.
Yeah.
So with regards to men who are trans women, should they be allowed in women prisons?
Yes, I see no issue in it, as long as obviously it's a safe space for all.
And what about if they're, because there's different types of crimes you can commit, what if they're sex offenders? Should they be allowed in women's prisons? But they're trans women.
I feel like
What?
I'm
No.
not quite sure about that one, because obviously
It's a difficult one.
yeah, it's a very difficult one.
I just can't believe that this is real life, bro. Like, this can't be real. This can't be real, bro. Like, these are real mindsets, bro. Like, forget the video. I'm breaking the fourth wall. These are real mindsets. People actually wake up and, and I'm not even talking about her stances on the issues. That's not even what I'm talking about. Because people going to try to flip this around and say, Jojo said, no. I'm saying that this line of reasoning is insane. The lack of critical thinking, and she seems like a very nice young woman. But the critical thinking is, it's not. But anyways, I'm going to end this video here. If you have any suggestions, comment down below. This is Jojo, and I'll see you in the next one.